We're live.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to House Energy and Digital Infrastructure. We are discussing the Energy Efficiency Modernization Act. My name is Kathleen James, and I am from Manchester.
Scott Campbell from St. Johnsbury.
Richard Bailey, Memorial 2.
Chris Morrow, Wyndham, Windsor, Bennington. Michael, Southworth, Caledonia 2.
Christopher Howland, Rutland 4.
Dara Torrey, Washington 2.
Marissa Billy, Wyndham 2.
Great, and joining us in the room,
Aaron Springer with Burlington Electric.
Amber Whitmer, Burlington Electric.
Dana Lee Perry, the Craftsman Group.
great. All right, for the record, thanks for reaching out.
Thank you for having me. My name is Alan Ganchak. I'm the director of the Division of Energy and Efficiency Resources of the Department of Public Service. I'm here to talk about. Jump right into it.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's all you.
So I don't have much to say today. I just have a couple key points that I want to make, just to get the department's feelings on EMA on the record. The first thing I just want to say, generally speaking, we do not support the extension of EMA per se, although we do make an exception for some type of provision to allow BED to operate with regulated fuels in their TEPM, the Thermal Efficiency and Process Fuels programs. Want to acknowledge that their service territory, in the way that it overlaps with BGS's service territory, makes it particularly difficult to deliver that program for unregulated fuels because there are so few customers. And so some type of accommodation to allow them to work with BGS to address regulated fuel customers that we feel is an appropriate thing to extend. But on the EMA front itself, we have some concerns with, I guess, the lack of accountability of that money and the way that it's used. And so I think the first point is that so far there has been little to no demonstrable uplift from the additional layering on of the EMA funds, the programs that it's been applied to. And there are a number of examples, but I think it both distorts the market in ways that are sort of outside of the rules of what other DUs are afforded. Namely, with tier 3 programs, the layering of incentives has pushed the amount that BED can pay for similar measures that other DUs offer in their tier 3 programs well beyond what the avoided compliance payment is, which is supposed to be sort of the ceiling threshold on what is, it's not directly cost effective, but it's like a proxy, I would say, for sort of the cost effectiveness of the program acquiring GHG reductions or reduction of cost fuel.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry to
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
This is a question for you, Chair. Do we want to hear just a quick overview of what tier 3 is, or does everybody understand?
Yes, I'm sorry, I couldn't.
That might be, thanks.
Okay, so tier 3 is one of the pathways under the renewable energy standard that allows the distribution utilities to retire credits through customer sited equipment. So there's a number of tiers that sort of reduce in focus and sort of concentric rings. So you have tier 1, which is just sort of any wholesale power purchases that reduce fossil fuel consumption. Tier 2 is within the state of Vermont. Tier 3 is sort of on the customer side, et cetera, et cetera. So they kind of shrink down in focus. And so the tier 3 programs largely, they're allowed to address any unregulated fuel reduction, but largely they have focused on fuel switching, namely heat pumps and a little bit of activity. Is that accurate? Yeah. Just want to make sure I'm representing that correctly. And so the tier 3 programs are allowed to spend, the distribution utilities are allowed to spend ratepayer dollars to acquire these renewable energy credits by reducing fossil fuel. And so what EMA allows BED to do in sort of a unique case is layer those funds on top of tier 3, thus sort of pushing the amount of incentive they can offer well beyond what any other DU could offer. And so, there's a questions around distortion of the market, but I think also just from what we've seen, the incentive levels have nearly doubled in BED's case compared to what was on offer, with no increase in participation in the programs. And I would say on the EV side, the department did some some process evaluation in the market to assess sort of the effectiveness of EV rebates in general. And again, in the cases where EMA dollars were added, less than a third of participants in the program said that the money was actually meaningful in influencing their purchasing decision to proceed with an EV purchase. And so we would argue that the converse of, roughly 2/3 of participants in the program were planning on buying an EV and just took the money anyway, which we feel is.
Good question.
Yep.
Was that before the federal credits went away?
Yes.
Yeah. So now we're in a different.
We are in a different world, and that is an important caveat that is worth bringing up. But in general, we feel that with that amount of free ridership in a program, that there could be better uses of that money to affect GHG reductions in more meaningful and direct ways. And so I think on the third point, there's the market distortion and questions about free ridership aside, generally speaking, the EMA money going into TEPF and some that's layered on tier 3, and I think Darren already presented on this, what their budget breakdown is, but it's roughly 20%, maybe a little over 20% of the 3-year budget is actually going towards non-fuel switching measures. And our concern is that fuel switching measures, while good at reducing GHGs, pose the potential to cause material harm by increasing people's energy burden. And I think this is particularly true in VGS territory, where a fuel switch away from natural gas to an electrified system, even a heat pump, which is extremely efficient, has the potential to significantly increase overall thermal energy costs. And so weatherization is a great hedge against that. And we would argue that we would like to see a better balance at the very least between expenditures on weatherization and expenditures on fuel switching. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
One of the mechanisms for increasing the energy burden or the energy cost to the customer would be that a heat pump offers cooling in the summer. Is that sort of one of the mechanisms that we're talking about here?
In terms of reducing the energy burden or increasing?
No, well, increasing the energy burden, so-called increasing the energy cost overall.
Well, no, that is true, yes, and in general that does cause an increase. But I'm talking just in terms of providing thermal,
just heating in the winter.
Heating BTUs in the winter.
Yeah, because my gas is so
It's so
inexpensive per
Yep,
BTU.
exactly.
Delivered BTU after
Right, and
accounting for efficiency.
Furnaces are incredibly
Yeah.
efficient,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, just wanted to clarify that.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I have heard that Massachusetts, that uses natural gas,
Mhm.
they have a heat pump rate, seasonal heat pump rate
That's correct.
to
They
get
just-
right at the
Just
CQ.
started this, yeah.
Is this something that Vermont's going to explore?
There is a docket right now that I believe Commissioner Allen has suggested that is looking at alternative rates. And I apologize, I don't know what the status of that is currently, but I know that is on the books.
Can you explain that briefly?
So I guess in the case of Massachusetts, all of their utilities have to offer a seasonal heat pump rate that's lower. And it accounts for the additional sales, so that apparently it's revenue neutral for the utility. But it's a significant savings because of the point you're making, that gas, your gas bill might be lower than your electricity bill, especially with what's going on in that unregulated market. So I just thought that's an intriguing affordability effort that we should consider in our state. Yes.
If I could let Rick Sealy jump in, cut the line.
Yeah, I'm sorry, and I'm sorry to have stepped out. My phone is ringing off the hook. Someone's trying to get my attention. But there was, you were talking about the tier 3 issue, and I just wanted to make sure that I understood, and I may have missed it when I stepped out, the concern of the department, which is that BED is able to offer larger incentives to their ratepayers than the other DUs.
Mhm.
That's the concern of the
Well,
department.
it's not just that it's large larger incentives, although there is some parity consideration of what that does in terms of market pricing. But the bigger issue as far as the department is concerned is that increase pushes the total amount that they can offer beyond what the normal threshold would have been in terms of the maximum amount that they can spend. Because there's what's called the alternative compliance payment, which is meant to be sort of the backstop on the maximum amount that any DU can spend per credit or per ton of carb, whatever unit you want to use. But the ability to layer EMA funds on that allows them to push beyond what that limit is and offer more money.
Now or before? Is that including the federal incentives that are all gone? I'm a little bit lost in.
No, this is just in the context of what they can offer in a tier 3 incentive and what they can layer on top of it with the EMA dollars.
And so my question was looking for clarification that that's more than most of the DUs, and you said yes, and I'm still missing the and.
Oh,
I'm missing the and.
The and is that it's pushing them outside of what is cost effective. I guess it's not technically cost effective at that point when they're offering that. And because the EMA money is not accountable for cost effectiveness in the same way, that fact is ignored because it's in addition to. So the normal tier 3 incentive is still within compliance, but this extra money allows them to push past that limit.
So, Madam Chair, if I could just get 30 more seconds.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm struggling with it. I'm just struggling with the cost effectiveness. I might need this for like my 6th grade neighbor, if you could explain it.
And the alternative compliance. Yeah.
So there's a cost effectiveness calculation that applies to all the DUs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And whatever that calculation is, whether it's a real, whether you would agree with it or not, whether I would agree with it or not, that's the limit on all the DUs that they can spend using tier 3, getting tier 3 credit for that. And by BED being able to use EEM money, they can exceed that threshold that limits all the other DUs. Am I getting that?
Yeah, that's correct. And so upfront, the tier 3 program has looked at all of the costs and benefits societally from what it means to reduce a ton of greenhouse gas through the tier 3 program, and said, the benefits in terms of avoided carbon emissions and the benefits of additional sales through electrification, which can help have downward pressure on rates, et cetera, et cetera.
Costing more than it's worth.
Exactly. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So the amount that they would outlay is
in the department's estimation.
yes, in the total amount. And so the tier 3 portion of the program is in compliance and it's below that threshold. But with the addition of EMA money, it allows them to spend beyond that threshold.
Do you have data on this?
Yes, not on me, but
I would really be interested.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just a quick question on tier 3. Are you or is there currently a PUC proceeding? Digging
There
into
are several, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there are a couple of proceedings that are touching tier 3, and there's one that's actually looking at the interplay between tier 3 and the EEU programs,
Okay.
trying to see if there are, because they exist more or less in silos. There's some linkage with heat pumps, but even there, it's sort of arbitrary. So we're looking at ways that we could kind of bring that more into alignment too. And then there's a docket around affordability that's touching up tier 3. There's a couple of proceedings.
So the proposed heat pump rate is for the heating season, heat pump.
Correct.
And it is digitally controlled through some sort of communication with the heat pump and the meter,
Yes.
or some sort of.
I believe in Massachusetts, there's actually a widget that goes on the heat pump so that you don't have to actually
A printed circuit board
manually-
without
yeah,
control
exactly.
of some
So it's
type that.
less invasive. I don't think you need an electrician to put it.
Well, no, but it goes back to what's position on electric replacing storage heat, the stuff that heated bricks in the stores heat during the evening
Mhm.
and released during the day. I think it's called the storage heat
Mhm.
rate in GMP territory. And we're getting rid of it. We don't want resistive electric heat
Correct. Yeah. I would say that that's generally true. It's the most expensive way. It's 100% efficient, but it's just very expensive.
Rep Morrow?
I'm just wondering if it's appropriate to ask Mr. Springer to respond to some of these.
Oh, yeah, I don't.
Right.
Let's let DPS finish testimony, and then happy, since you're here, happy to have a conversation. And then the question percolating in my mind is whether you two would be in a position to figure this out and come back to us with some compromise. So, huh?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay, great. But go ahead.
I'm pretty much done there. I think I just wanted to hammer home on that point that, all other things being equal, the department just would really like to see more emphasis on weatherization. Fuel switching tends to, as I've said, there's free ridership. It's market rate, which means that people of means tend to take advantage of those programs more. And in terms of addressing energy affordability, it can be at best neutral and sometimes counterproductive. And so we would just like to see weatherization, which is a tool to, improve energy affordability and its still efficiency. We'd just like to see that emphasized more.
So, all right, I'm trying to put all the pieces together. I think you said at the beginning that public service would support BED being able to use TEPF, their TEPF money for the regulated fuel for
Yes.
for gas.
Yep.
Just not being able to use it for layering on. Well, let's see, but the EEM, the EMA is the mechanism that authorizes them to. I said I get to still get the TEPF money, right? It's not.
Yes.
It's not they get that separately. It's not through this EMA.
No, and we would want to be very clear. Like that is Burlington Electric Department ratepayers' money. They should get that money. They should be able to spend it in their service territory.
Okay.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, and it looks like your proposed solution is to let EMA expire and permanently adopt something that was in Act 142. And I haven't looked up those statutory references. But
Yeah, but I'm trying to get back to what is EMA letting them do? That is
The part that we have the issue with is the sort of unaccountability of the money. So if it sort of takes it out of the normal key performance indicators, that all the NPRs and QPIs don't apply to that carve out. And so we would just, I guess, like to see those apply to it again, so that it's subject to the same rules of cost effectiveness and prudent expenditure of ratepayer dollars, et cetera.
I'm still going back. I'm missing a link here. EMA is allowing BED to do what exactly?
Carve out a certain portion of money and
Of their TEPF money.
correct. And it basically can be spent on projects that don't comport with the normal rules of what TPF is supposed to be, how it's supposed to be spent. So it's sort of,
But it doesn't affect the amount of TEPF.
Nope.
They still get their share of TEPF.
correct.
All right.
So it sounds like you support a permanent adoption of the language that would allow the carve outs, but you want to have more control over the cost effectiveness.
Yes, we would
Which-
just like to see the same cost effectiveness rules apply.
But that's what happens during your triennial plan negotiation, right?
But not with the $100. Those are, we have no ability to negotiate. And we don't evaluate it. It's just completely outside of the zero.
So that language would have to be in this.
Yes.
So this is what's good.
and if we don't, I think what Darren said earlier is that if we don't address this, EMA's going to expire. You're going to get your TPF money, and a big chunk of your TPF money is going to be fenced off, and you're not going to be able to spend it. So we need to figure this out.
Maybe
Most of it.
not all.
Okay. So, do we want to swap seats here, or okay?
Sorry.
Rich, can you hear this? For the record,
Darren Springer, General Manager of Burlington Electric.
great.
We've been,
Thoughts, feelings?
we've been accused of having strong rebates and I plead guilty. We do have good rebates. So hearing the department's testimony, I would offer a few thoughts. One is we've definitely seen that there is more customer uptake with the enhanced incentives that we've been able to offer through this program than there might be otherwise. Best example is back during 2020, when we first started implementing some of this with PUC approval, our heat pump adoption went from anemic to exponential curve. We actually have now over 3,200 heat pumps adopted in Burlington. And back then, it was a small fraction of that number. And it's true that if you give a customer more money for a piece of technology, all things equal, and they're interested in adopting it, they're going to adopt it at a greater rate. There may be issues, as I talked about earlier, and I think more so with the EV credits previously, that you could argue around free ridership and other things. I think some of those on the EV side don't exist anymore. So I would argue back a little that there is, I think, a benefit to having these stronger incentives. And in a moment where we know we're not meeting any of our particular goals around the deployment of these technologies, and the federal government has created a massive headwind, I'm less concerned from a standpoint of having an incentive that might be in a normal period of time, perhaps considered a little bit larger than it otherwise might be. We do offer a combination essentially for customers. We pull from our tier 3 funds and we pull from our efficiency funds through the Energy Efficiency Modernization Act and combine those for one incentive for the customer. So Alec is correct that on the tier 3 side, we're judged based on whether or not our measure is below the alternative compliance payment. When the legislature enacted the Efficiency Modernization Act, it said for these monies, we're not going to judge you that way. You're able to use them with less regulation and with more flexibility. So I'm not clear, that the combination isn't still cost effective for getting us a measure. It would just be in addition to what we offer under one kind of existing program that everybody has, which is tier 3, we're able to layer in this additional incentive. To be crystal clear though, with our programs that we talked about earlier, there's only 3 of them that we're proposing to do in this manner. And it's the heat pumps, the EVs, and the multifamily charging program. Everything else I discussed, the geothermal test wells, the income qualified customer electric panel upgrades, the commercial custom programs, none of those are layered incentives or have the necessary concerns that I think Alec described. Those are separate programs.
I actually didn't understand that. So that's good. So what are the 3?
The 3 were
pumps,
EVs, heat pumps, and EV charging for multifamily customers.
Okay.
We've identified those as really key technologies where we would like to offer the best possible incentive that we're able to under the law. And under the law currently, we're able to do it. And if there was an extension with certain language included, we'd be able to continue to do it. I respect very much, as I said earlier, the department's focus on weatherization. I think Alec has a point that there's not currently a weatherization component to our proposal. I think we could work together and come up with some language that said, okay, we can do some of these things, but we also have to allocate a certain percentage of these dollars towards weatherization. Now, VGS, Vermont Gas, does offer weatherization services, so we would be layering our incentive there on top of potential VGS incentives. So we'd be doing the same thing that we're doing in the EV space or in the heat pump space. But I'm not opposed to that. I don't think we need to be overly concerned with the idea that we're bringing 2 pots of funds together to fund a customer incentive. I think we want to make sure that the incentives are as strong as they can be. But if one of the critiques is you're not doing it with weatherization, we'll say, okay, we'll do it with weatherization. Let's add that to the mix too.
Rep Campbell's hand is up first.
Of those 3 programs or the incentive possibilities that you mentioned, the heat pump incentive seems like that is a questionable cost effectiveness from customer economics side, economic side, because of, as Alec pointed out, the cost of natural gas, fossil gas is so low at the moment. the incentives for EV purchases, how what would you say to that? To someone saying, well, that's not fair for Burlington residents to have a higher incentive than anybody else in the state is able to get. One question.
Sure.
And then the other thing that occurs to me about the incentives for rental EV charging equipment, that seems like a uniquely appropriate for Burlington because you have such a high percentage of renters.
Yeah.
So
I would agree with you on that.
Yeah.
So in terms of the heat pumps, it's true that the customer economics, if you're looking at heating with the heat pump, and then you add in the cooling, which is more efficient than any air conditioning system for the most part. Sometimes they're better, but most of the time they're break even, or sometimes they're worse. But customers aren't just looking at heat pumps from a pure how much does it cost to operate standpoint. Some of them want it because of it is cleaner technology.
Yeah.
Some of them want it for comfort. You get a different type of heating and cooling with the heat pump than you do with like a baseboard, heating system, for example. And the other piece there that I wanted to reiterate is we're working. So you mentioned the natural gas and the heat pump rates. That grant that I mentioned, we're working to have a bill credit program for customers to reduce the operating cost of heat pumps to make them more cost effective as part of our broader kind of offering. So I agree that we want to make heat pumps more cost effective, but what we're seeing is, over 3,000 customers, over 3,200 have wanted a heat pump in Burlington for reasons that include those other, necessary reasons, and we'd like to support them. On the EV side, I would argue that it's an affordability win to get a customer an EV. You have no or very little maintenance cost.
but why is it fair for a Burlington resident to have an advantage over anybody else in the state?
Well, I mean, I think with our, if you look at our mix, like we were talking about, electric vehicles have a great application in Burlington. We have a relatively, compact service territory. Our customers drive fewer miles on average than a customer elsewhere in Vermont. I think we have an average of 8,000 miles a year that a customer drives, and it might be more like 12,000 miles a year for an average Vermonter who's living in a more rural service area. So I'd argue EVs have a greater application, and we've actually seen greater adoption rates in Burlington around EVs. But I'm not necessarily saying Burlington should have a better deal than other utilities. I would personally support giving anyone the flexibility to match what we're offering. Instead of creating a ceiling that prevents us from going where we want to go. I'd like to create opportunity for everybody to offer.
So would I. Where's your checkbook?
Yeah, well, I mean, so we're
right here.
we're supportive of having everybody have that flexibility. It so happens because of this unique quirk with the TEPF program that we have a source that's appropriate in our view to use to help our customers. But with EVs, I do think it is an equity issue too, because like I said, we have almost a quarter of our customers who are getting an EV or a plug-in hybrid are income qualified customers. So this is not just going to folks who are, making more money. This is a lot going to income qualified customers. And
one quarter?
About one quarter.
Yeah, okay.
And we know that when a customer gets an EV, whatever the upfront cost barrier might be, they're going to save money on fuel. Even at our public charging stations in Burlington, which is probably the most expensive way you could charge, you're still paying about $1.75 a gallon equivalent compared to $3 or $4 at the gas station. So we want as many customers as we can to get into an EV, to buy our product, electricity, which, roughly 2/3 of the dollar you spend with us stays in the Vermont economy, and about 3/4 of the dollar you spend at the gas station leaves the economy. We want that.
Sold them all.
Yeah.
Okay. Just it's the equity thing between both.
Yeah. We'd be happy to be supportive of other provisions to help others reach the same level.
Thank you.
Victoria?
I was curious, do you actually have targets for income eligibility? Because that gets to the free ridership.
There are, it's like kind of, Alec mentioned all these dockets. There's discussion on this question in the docket is what are your kind of targets for income eligibility? Are you meeting them? If you're not meeting them, what do we do with that? So the answer is they're not requirements. They're not legal requirements in the sense that if you don't meet them, you have to do something different. But we do track that compliance in the PUC context and with the department. And then there are opportunities to say, okay, if you're not meeting these, what are we doing to correct that? And I think in Burlington, we've seen, with our incentive adoption in the EV space, we are doing really well in that particular category. We've tried offering income enhanced incentives for other pieces of technology as well, more recently with electric motors, electric bikes, things like that as well.
Rep. Howland?
So the EV incentives are they're available to anybody by their resident. mailing address, not necessarily whether they're in a living space that they're a electric customer or not.
As long as they're a customer of ours, they'd be eligible for our.
So if they rent an apartment where they don't pay the electric bill, they're not eligible for the rebate?
Pretty much almost all, not all, but a lot of our customers who rent do pay the electric bill, generally speaking. But yeah, it's eligible customers. So I don't know if we've had a scenario where somebody was a Burlington resident but didn't pay the electric bill and wanted an EV rebate. That's an interesting question. We would like to provide it to everybody, but typically you have to have a customer account. Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty, so, I mean, we have until crossover to try to help out, but I think it's better if you guys talk about this and not have us try to,
We'll get together.
great.
Thank you again.
TBD, yeah, thanks for bringing this to our attention. It sounds like, sure we can figure something out.
So the new
Okay, we can go off live.
Thank you.
housing.